Welcome to Health Facts with Normanie Ricks. I am your host, Normanie Ricks. I like to start off each episode with a little known health fact. Do you know what the difference between macros and micros are? I didn't. Macros are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and micros are vitamins and minerals. Our guest today, Josh Wood, knows all about those things. Josh Wood is a TEDx speaker, health educator, and strength coach with over 15 years of experience helping people get strong for life, physically, mentally, and practically. With a background in health science and strength and conditioning, Josh specializes in simplifying complex nutrition and training strategies so that real people can see real results. He is the founder of Strong for Life online coaching, where he works with busy professionals and parents to build strength, confidence, and sustainable habits through personalized coaching. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thank you for having me.
So, can you tell me about your journey? How did you get to this point?
Oh boy, it's been a long journey. It's funny, they say every journey starts with a single step, and every step has been what I always thought was the next logical step. My interest in health and fitness started when I was around 17. I was just a skinny computer nerd working in a little computer shop, and one day I was sitting there and I was like, I should learn how to fight. And it's like, that's something like a teenage boy would want to think at some point. And I was like, okay, well, how do I do that? And I started looking into kickboxing, and there was nothing. So I ended up joining an MMA gym run by a Brazilian guy out of an old Irish boxing gym in my hometown. He had a couple mats in the corner, and he was an actual medical doctor in Brazil and moved to the US. I'm originally from the US, and just decided to teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts and give up on medicine. And so I started learning about how to break the body. And I did that for a number of years. I traveled, went to the UK for a while, then moved to Australia where I live now, and just kept practicing MMA and fighting and things like that. And one day I was like, you know what? I should probably learn how to fix bodies. It seems like a good step from here. And so I was like, okay, well, what's a good way to do this? I'm very physically oriented. So I learned massage, and I ended up running a practice for that for about 7 years and spent about 6 of those years working in a massage school teaching before I was like, what's the next logical step? I do a lot of work with fitness people. You know what? I should learn to be a personal trainer. And so I did that. And I ended up doing that more so than the massage. And that slowly took over. And I was like, I need a little bit more information. Okay, let's do a degree. So I did a 4-year degree in health science with a major in traditional Chinese medicine. I've always been a little bit of a hippie at heart. So I was like, I want to learn some different stuff and see where different medical practices come from and different views on health. And at the time, I was also working as a boxing coach, and I was running that practice, and I was studying at university. And I was like, you know what? What's next? I'm going to learn more about training. And then I did my post-grad in strength and conditioning. And then as the world changed, and as we had these massive pandemic responses that changed the face of one-on-one personal training, I was like, what's the next logical step? Well, how do we reach more people without being limited by space and time? Internet. And so I moved everything a few years back into an online platform, working through an app. And now I just train everybody like a coach in your pocket. The idea is being a live-in coach through your phone. And so everything is app-based these days. And that's like how old am I? I'm 36. I started training when I was 17. I started teaching massage when I was 21. And I've been coaching people ever since. So we're talking 15 years of being a professional in the industry. And it was just like, what's the next step? Where is the weakness I need to fill in? And till I came here and decided that the most important thing is to reach busy parents and busy professionals and figure out how to make them reach their health and fitness goals in the most flexible manner I could think of.
That's a very awesome journey. That's an awesome journey. So I'm wondering, how did you get the platform to go on a TEDx talk? So your TEDx talk, 6 Steps to Eat Like an Adult, breaks down nutrition in a no-nonsense way. What inspired that message, and how can healthcare professionals apply it personally and with patients?
I like that question. The TEDx thing actually happened because I saw that an event was coming up, and a friend of mine was like, hey, you should apply for this. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't know anything about this platform and how these things run. He's like, just try it. Well, so I applied, and then I got into the short list, and then I had to do a 60-second video pitch, which is a bit tricky. And then from 6 months from applying to actually speaking, it was developing this 14-minute talk on how to eat like an adult, which is it's a platform I've used a lot. And that originally came about, the actual codification of the 6 habits came about because my sister was asking for help for her and her husband to eat better because they had kids. And when I was visiting my family in Minnesota, I wanted to figure out a simple way of codifying these habits and leave something behind. So I created my first infographic on how to eat like an adult so they could put it on their fridge. And that was sort of the jumping off point 3 years before my TED Talk, where I actually started processing and putting together steps. Like, what does it mean to eat like an adult? What is an adult? What does this mean? And so it started with my sister asking for help. And I was like, you know what? This is a demographic I understand. Busy people who run their own business. My sister runs a salon. So another business owner has young kids. I was like, okay, how do we make this simple? And it all came down to one thing, one major concept that then had to be backed up with actionable habits. And that concept was adults understand that the future that we want is created by the decisions we make today. If I want tomorrow to be different from today, I have to make a decision that creates that change. And it's the same in any industry and on any length of time, any timeline you could think of. If we want the future to be different than now, we have to make decisions that lead to that. And that's the foundation of the 6 habits. These are habits like understanding if you're actually hungry, understanding what it means to be hungry, how to manage that, how to choose better little by little. All those things can be actioned, but it's all based on the idea of if you want a different tomorrow, you have to make a decision today. And that can be actioned by anybody.
Okay, that sounds awesome. So that kind of makes me think about meal planning. So I know a lot of people can make their lives a lot easier by, I guess, cooking a lot of food on Sunday and taking this food with them every day of the week. And I'm also an occupational therapist and I have my own business and I work a lot with toddlers. So it resonated with me when it's like eat like an adult because toddlers just eat snack crackers and fruit all day. So, and I know as adults, we need those macros. So how can you encourage someone to, I guess, think ahead with their eating for the week?
I think the first thing that you need to figure out is what you're eating for. What is your goal with changing your food? And then putting together, I guess, sort of a map of like, what are the things you need? So if your goal is to lose weight, well, you have to consume less total calories than you're eating currently. If your goal is to gain weight, you have to consume more. Okay, so calories are the energy we get from food. Your macronutrients are the bigger components of food that actually give us energy: protein, carbohydrates, fat. So they're energy sources, but they're also building blocks. So if we're going to get nerdy about this, we need to decide how much total energy we need and what building blocks we need the most of. Now, protein is the most important building block because our whole bodies are made out of that. So when I'm working with people to create meal plans, the first 2 things we look at is, well, how much total energy do you need? And how much protein do you need to have? And protein has a host of benefits, not just as building blocks, but also helps when you're eating it to regulate blood sugar and cravings and hunger. So adding more protein tends to make people less hungry, have less cravings. So when we're looking at meal prep, the big things we're looking for is how do we fuel you and how do we help you repair and build? And once you have those 2 things, putting a meal plan together isn't too hard. You just choose the foods that you like and tinker with them until they're in the right macro ratios.
Okay. So also with being a business owner, I know that sometimes we're at a desk all day, but we're using a lot of energy for our brains. So what is good brain food that you would recommend?
That's a good question because, yes, I'm sitting at a desk and it is a big part of the modern work environment. And fun fact, we'll add a fun health fact for you. Your brain can use up to 20% of your total daily energy. Your brain can use a ton of energy. And the fuel it runs most efficiently off of is carbohydrate. It's glucose. And all carbohydrates will break down into glucose in your body. So we need a certain amount of glucose. We need a certain amount of carbohydrate to take in. And so if you have a big mental load that you're dealing with, or say you're about to give a talk or do something high stress, taking in some easy to use carbohydrates through simple sugars can be very beneficial for a quick boost. But we can't live off that. We can't live off of simple sugars. We will not do well. So if you're looking to optimize your brain function through nutrition, you need to make sure you have a good amount of protein so that your body can build itself and repair and replenish without using the protein as an energy source. We want to have enough to do building and enough other energy sources to actually fuel. So a good mix would be something like 25 to 30% of your intake through protein, 10 to 25% of fats as a sustained energy source. Also, your brain is primarily made out of saturated fats. Like your brain needs fats to exist. And then if we fill those two categories, we need to make sure we have a good amount of carbohydrate, especially when we're doing a lot of thinking. And more complex, slower digesting carbohydrates through high fiber options or starchy foods like potato, sweet potato, root vegetables, even things like apples and your tree fruits do a really good job of giving you a bit more sustained energy and the right kind of energy you need to fuel your brain for maximum thinking power.
Okay, I think that's a really awesome answer. I think that a lot of people hear words like protein and carbohydrates, but I really love the fact that you gave examples of those types of foods because people just don't know what to eat sometimes. I think athletes do get more nutritional coaching than the regular population. And when you mention carbohydrates, I think they automatically jump to, okay, let me eat pasta before I go run a race.
Yeah. And pasta's fine. Your whole grains are fine sources of starchy carbs, slow digesting carbohydrates. But the problem is people tend to think they need more than they do.
Okay. So you often say train to be strong for life. Can you explain what that means in practice and how it differs from traditional fitness goals like aesthetics or performance?
The actual terminology strong for life came out of an idea I had about training should make you harder to kill. It should make you tougher, more resilient, able to deal with challenges better. But that didn't sound positive. Harder to kill is a defensive position, and I like to try to frame things in a uplifting and positive direction. So I came up with the idea of strong for life, which is about being capable of undertaking all the things that are important to you in life. And if you are strong for life, if you are robust and strong and capable for all the adventures that you want to undertake, you're going to be physically strong. You're also going to look pretty good. I think of people, especially parents and business owners, like athletes. We need to be fueled and capable for the large amount of stress and responsibility that is hanging off our shoulders. And in the case of parents, sometimes it's literally hanging off your shoulders. So Strong for Life is really about understanding what you want to get out of your life and making sure your training and nutrition not only helps you do that and overcome it, but also fits into your schedule. You can't, people in my position, 2 kids, one just turned 5, the other is 1.5. Wild, feral boys. They take a lot of energy and time. I run a business. My wife runs nature play business as well. We're very busy. I can't undertake a 7-day-a-week, 20-year-old bodybuilder training split. And nobody I work with can either. We don't have the time and we don't have the mental and physical resources to do that. So a big part of it is the training has to benefit your life without detracting from your ability to live it.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners?
The people that I talk to almost every day often have one big challenge that prevents them from actually taking those first steps to looking after your health and wellness. And that is generally paralysis by analysis. It's generally, there's too much information, too many things to think about, and they don't know where or how to start. And the number one advice I can give anyone, whether it's starting a new business, starting a new project, deciding to become a parent, looking after your health and fitness, whatever, the number one thing is always simplify. Simplify. So much of intelligence is not knowing stuff, it's understanding what you don't need to worry about. And so smart decision making is simplification. And the number one thing that I have people do is decide what is the number one most important single thing you need to do to start on this new journey, whether it's health, fitness, business, parenting, whatever. Pick one thing and just do that. Don't worry about anything else. Maybe it's just I need to walk more. Maybe it's I need to get more protein. Maybe it's I need to start some daily journaling, whatever. Pick one thing and do that until it's no longer something you have to worry about making yourself do. Do it until it becomes a habit and part of your lifestyle, and then add the next thing.
Okay, that's wonderful. You've lived in different parts of the world. So do you feel like there's different food choices depending on where you live and maybe healthier choices in different countries that maybe you visited or lived in?
So I've been a few places. I grew up in the Midwest in the United States. I grew up in Nebraska and Minnesota. I spent a bit of time in the UK. I spent time in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, spent most of my adult life living in Australia. And when we look at food choices and food systems and culture, the number one thing I see in cultures that seem to be healthiest. So one thing we don't see a lot of in rural communities, especially in the developing world, is we don't see a lot of obesity and related chronic diseases. And they eat a lot of the things that a lot of people think are not good for you. They eat a lot of carbohydrate. They eat a lot of rice and sweet things, but they don't have the obesity. They don't have the the heart disease rate and other associated illnesses. They tend to be pretty lean, healthy, and capable. And the thing I see with that most of all is that those cultures are very active. They move a lot. They're usually doing physical jobs. But more than that, they eat what's available locally and seasonally.
That's true.
You can't import a bunch of junk when you're in a developing nation living in a rural community. You eat what you can grow. You eat what your neighbors can grow. You eat what's in season. And I think when we start thinking more what's called a locavore diet, eating locally and seasonally, it removes a lot of excess, a lot of things that aren't typically good for us. And we quickly find it's not the carbs that make people fat and sick. It's not the fats. It's excess. And so when we eat in a way that is local and seasonal, a lot of excess is removed. And we have things that are grown in the native soils and they're most nutrient dense because they're fresh. And I think that everywhere I've gone, those people were generally the healthiest and the happiest. And that's a way that anybody can eat anywhere.
Locavore, that's a new word. I'm going to have to use that.
It's good. It's definitely underused, but it is a sustainable way of eating for a lot of people.
That's great. I heard you say that you had some experience with Eastern medicine versus, I guess, Western medicine. What were your key takeaways when you had that experience?
Well, Eastern and Western medicine, there's a lot of different ways of looking at that. Typically, we think Western medicine, we think modern scientific medicine, pharmaceuticals, a real reductionist approach to looking at people and the science that we use, where a lot of Eastern philosophies and older Western philosophies look first at the individual. They're more contextual. It's not a cell in a petri dish. It's a highly complex individual within a highly complex environment. And so my background's in traditional Chinese medicine as part of my studies. And the number one thing that I found most useful from that, because I don't use a lot of it. A lot of it is more tradition and a lot of it is a bit woo. But the understanding of this is a person, and to figure out what's wrong with them, we have to figure out who they are, how they live, and what their environment's like. And so it's a very holistic viewpoint. And that's sort of the foundation of how I work with people on their health and fitness. It's like, it doesn't matter what perfect and optimal is. It's what can this person do in their circumstances to improve those circumstances. So it's all coming down to the individual.
Okay, that's great. Can you tell us more about what led you to write your recent book?
The cookbook?
Yes.
So a buddy of mine and myself, we put out a cookbook called Masala, which is a nutrient-focused take on traditional Indian food. I love flavor. I like to cook. I like to travel, and I like to eat food when I travel. And traveling and eating food are two sides of the same coin for me. And I love Indian food. I love the spices. I love cooking it. I like the diversity of ways of cooking different things. And so back in 2023, one of my clients, he's based out of Washington, D.C., and he spent a lot of time in India, and he trained as a chef. And he used to work in cooking schools and various places. And I was just like, hey, Ed, you want to help me put together an Indian food cookbook, but make it focused on like hitting your macros and health. And he's like, oh yeah, okay, sure. How long do we have? It's like, I was thinking this, we should probably be able to knock this out in like a quarter, 3-4 months, publish it beginning of 2024. 18 months later, we finally get the book finished. And the whole idea was like, we take these traditional Indian flavors and simplify so that anybody can do them. There's a primer on how to use spices, what all the different spices are, how to make your own spice mixes. We've even included a few drinks, like how to make your own masala chai, mango lassi, that kind of thing. And he's the chef. I'm a cook. Like, I like to cook. I've worked in a few cooking situation, restaurants and food prep for wilderness guiding and in lodges and things like that. But he's the chef. He's the genius. And I'm the nutrition guy. And so we took all these traditional recipes and broke down all the nutrients in them. And one of the big things that we wanted to make this book different from other books in the same category was each and every recipe has a breakdown of the calories per serve, the macronutrients, fats, proteins, carbs per dish. And I've put all of those recipes into MyFitnessPal, and there's a barcode on every page. So you can just scan the barcode and it comes up with all the nutrition information for each recipe for those that want to track and weigh and measure.
That sounds wonderful.
It's good.
That's so informative, and I'll definitely check out your book.
Thank you.
So it's been an honor and a privilege of having you on the show today. I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge with the world.
Thank you very much for having me.